Ferrari could not fail to improve in 2021 given last season was its worst in Formula 1 for 40 years. The question is, has it improved by enough? And given team principal Mattia Binotto's target was to climb to third in the championship, the answer to that question, after the first race of the season, is maybe. In qualifying for the season opening Bahrain Grand Prix, Ferrari was the team that lost the least performance compared to the event at the same circuit in November 2020. Charles Leclerc's qualifying time was only 0.541 seconds slower than it was last year, despite the regulation changes to cut downforce that contributed to Mercedes being more than 2 seconds slower. Given the extent of Ferrari's struggles last year, with its aerodynamic troubles, engine weakness and the difficulties of Sebastian Vettel, it had a lower baseline than many when it comes to this comparison. Therefore, it's less a case of Ferrari dealing with the rule changes better than others, and more down to how much low-hanging fruit there was for it to harvest with its modified car. But within the limitations of just one race weekend and all of the running so far taking place at the same circuit, we can conclude that Ferrari has made significant gains. The question is whether it's enough to be a consistent threat at the front of the midfield. Make sure you subscribe to the race so you don't miss any of our coverage of the 2021 Formula 1 season, and by chiming the notifications bell, you can be alerted the millisecond there's something new to watch. Last year's Ferrari had several aerodynamic weaknesses. As well as carrying too much drag for its reduced engine power, the Ferrari SF1000 suffered from an unstable rear end. This held back Vettel significantly and required Leclerc's extraordinary at-the-limit control to drag out strong qualifying performances. The focus with its successor, the Ferrari SF21, was therefore on improving the rear end. Ferrari spent its 2 development tokens on an elongated gearbox casing, which allowed it to mount the rear leg of its lower suspension wishbone to it. This was a clever way to mimic the rear suspension concept Mercedes adopted last year, creating cleaner airflow at the rear of the car. This design, of course, couldn't be directly replicated within the 2 token spend, so Ferrari did well to find a way to achieve it. The differential was also raised, allowing the creation of deeper side channels at the rear of the car. The result is far greater potential for generating rear downforce, doubly essential given the losses caused by the rule changes to the floor. The downside is that the restrictions of the development token system means Ferrari couldn't overhaul its old-fashioned nose concept. However, Ferrari did at least tweak the nose within what was allowed to make a slight improvement. It is clear that Ferrari has improved when it comes to aerodynamic performance and in particular rear-end grip. Leclerc describes the car as a bit better to drive, with an improved balance. Leclerc has also said repeatedly that the car in reality correlates well with the off-track simulations, which is also encouraging and indicates that any future developments should work as hoped. But it still required a spectacular qualifying lap from him to take 4th place on the grid as leading midfield runner, with his slide to 6th behind the McLaren of Lando Norris and recovering Red Bull driver Sergio Perez, perhaps more representative of where Ferrari stands. Ferrari's primary problem last year was the weakness of its engine package. It had the least competitive power unit of the 4 manufacturers, which was the result of a series of technical directives impacting fuel flow ahead of the season. These technical directives, of course, were the result of Ferrari's collaboration with the FIA. This was a result of the FIA's suspicions, which it could not prove and that Ferrari denied, that the engine was running illegally at times in 2019. But the impact was clear and cost Ferrari around 65 brake horsepower. Given the engines were frozen throughout last season, Ferrari had the chance to make its first upgrades with its 2021 engine. Gains have been made, but they're reckoned to be worth a little more than 20 brake horsepower, which isn't anywhere near enough for parity with Mercedes or even Honda. However, it was significant enough for a big performance gain. Bahrain is a power circuit with 4 significant straights, so it's encouraging that Ferrari went from being eliminated in Q2 last year to being best of the rest in qualifying this year. It's no coincidence that Ferrari customer team Alfa Romeo also made a big step in this area and was second only to Ferrari in terms of the least performance lost compared to Bahrain 2020. But while there have been changes to the engine this year, including the repositioning of the intercooler, the big gains are expected next year when Ferrari adopts the split turbo concept pioneered in F1 by Mercedes in 2014. Honda already uses this design, while Renault will also change over next year prior to the engine specification freeze that covers 2022 to 24. As a result, Ferrari's engine performance gain this year has been useful and certainly will put it in a better position, but still leaves it at a disadvantage compared to its direct rivals in the midfield, notably Mercedes-engined McLaren and Honda-powered AlphaTauri. Carlos Sainz finished 8th on his Ferrari debut in Bahrain, 2 places behind teammate Leclerc. It was a deliberately cautious start for the Spaniard, who was determined to avoid an early mishap and was shuffled from his starting position of 8th to 10th on the first lap. Last year, Vettel scored only 33 points compared to Leclerc's 98, with just 3 finishes in the top 8. While Sainz has a better car under him, he's already shown he can contribute more than his predecessor did in 2020. Sainz has taken a sensible, methodical approach to his integration at Ferrari and has a firm foundation to build on. When he moved from Renault to McLaren 2 years ago, the work done over the winter proved essential to his strong performances, and he's taken an even more rigorous approach to this career-making chance with Ferrari. With the first race under his belt and a clear intention to be more aggressive in future, it's been a good start for Sainz. That Ferrari has made gains with its car, engine performance and driver lineup this year is undeniable. The question is whether that's going to be enough to prevail in F1's ultra-competitive midfield pack. But while it's going to be in the hunt for best of the rest behind Red Bull and Mercedes, McLaren and AlphaTauri in particular will be tough rivals. The 3 leading midfield teams were covered by just a quarter of a second in Bahrain qualifying. And Alpine and Aston Martin will be pushing hard to gain on the leading trio in that midfield battle, with some very different circuits to take on in the upcoming races. Let us know in the comments below if you think Ferrari has done enough to achieve its objectives, or if this will be another year of frustration at Maranello. And if you enjoyed this look at Ferrari's progress, don't forget to like and subscribe.